Okay, good afternoon. Happy not third Tuesday. This is our monthly lunch and learn, which is normally held on the third Tuesday. We did move it this month so that we could accommodate some schedules. With the summer and all, things just get very hectic. Um, as you may know, each month we talk about something different, and we hope to raise education and awareness as to different things that are going on that can affect victims of crime or just residents as a whole. We are specifically talking about Maryland in this instance, and this month we're talking about restitution. So joining us today is Rebecca Allen, Troy Morgan, and Elijah Forbes. I'm going to do a quick round robin so people can introduce themselves, and then we'll hop right in. Let me start with Troy.
Hi, everyone. I'm a staff attorney here at Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center, and I focus mostly on restitution these days. Look forward to helping anyone out there who calls us.
Thanks, Troy. Elijah?
Hello, my name is Elijah Forbes. I am a paralegal at MCVRC. I've had the pleasure of working with Troy over the less than a year I've been working there, assisting on restitution cases.
And Becky.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Allen. I'm with the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy. I staff several statewide working groups, one including the statewide restitution work group.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in our questioning. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I think we've got a great panel to kind of tackle restitution and all that's included. For those of you that are watching at home, if you have a question, go ahead and drop that in the chat box. We'll try to grab those as we go through, and we're just going to hop right in. So restitution, what is it? Who's eligible? What, who, where, when, why, all those good things. I guess so. What is restitution? Who's eligible, and what are they eligible for?
Okay, restitution is basically victim compensation for direct injuries resulting from the crimes. So whoever has been injured directly by a crime is considered a victim. Also, if the person is deceased, it could be their personal representative who would continue the claim, and third parties who compensate the victim, they can also claim restitution.
Okay. And then we were gonna, in our last episode, we did CICB, which is the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. I'm just so used to it being called CICB. And so there's a differentiation between restitution and CICB. Does anyone want to try to tackle what those differences are?
I can start. CICB, the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, is a form of compensation like restitution, but it is a payer of last resort, and it cannot reimburse for property loss or property damage, which restitution can. To qualify for CICB, you do not have to request restitution or have a restitution order, but if you have a restitution order, you can also apply to CICB for the same compensable amount or item, but and if CICB pays out to you as a victim or a victim's representative, you then can request, then the payment for restitution from the offender is then ordered to pay CICB. So you can request both restitution and CICB for the same things, but there's a process where CICB will then request restitution payment from the offender. But again, you do not have to both apply to CICB. In order to apply to CICB, you do not have to request a restitution order. Troy, do you want to add? Oh, go ahead.
No. Do you feel like it would make the process longer if you're going through both venues?
Yeah, sometimes, because we may wait a period of time to see if restitution is going to be paid before paying out for criminal injuries compensation, but it's not always the case. And so if you have the ability to do both, we definitely recommend. But again, CICB is a payer of last resort. So there's certain circumstances where restitution order may be more beneficial. But definitely work with maybe Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center or another program to identify all of the avenues for compensation.
Troy, was there something you wanted to
Well,
add?
sure. There are lots of nuances between the differences between restitution and CICB that may come up. In restitution, of course, you have the offender who is doing the payment, and they may not have any money. So the court doesn't have to order restitution if the person has no ability to pay. The Criminal Injuries Compensation Board will pay you up to a certain amount. So they have the funds, but it's limited. You can ask all you want in restitution, all that you're entitled to that's a direct result of the crime. If you have your receipts and so forth, I think in both you need to document your loss. But it's interesting, I think, and Rebecca will be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe CICB has a wider scope in who it may collect for, because it can pay losses to dependents who were depending on for instance, a homicide victim, and it can pay a bereavement loss if you up to $2,000 if you lose time from work. But with restitution, you would only be paid if you can show your receipts. But there's certain things. I think with CICB, you'd have to show you were working, but you wouldn't get the just plain bereavement loss. That's just a consideration for the family impact. That CICB is a little broader than restitution, I think, in that respect.
So CICB is paid through the governor's office, correct?
It's managed by our office, the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy, and it's made up of state and federal funds.
Okay, but restitution is paid by
the offender.
So I think that is like a huge like thing that we should just put on the table right now. So basically, if there are losses, we're trying to hold the defender accountable in having to help with some of the losses that were accrued because of their actions. Whereas a CICB is acknowledging the victimization and assisting on a different end. So now that is on the table, so types of restitution. So restitution doesn't cover funeral, medical, those are all CICB, right?
It can. Restitution can as well. And so for example, if a victim if they requested restitution for a funeral expense and then also found out about CICB maybe after the fact that they found out about restitution, they could also apply for CICB if it's within 4 years of the crime. And then if CICB were to pay the victim, well, it would be the victim's representative or a family member. And if there's an active restitution order, that offender would then pay CICB for the funeral expenses since the victim was paid by CICB.
Okay. That's interesting. All right.
And the good thing about CICB is that it's sort of an administrative process. You're dealing with the government. With restitution, you've got to work in your claim somehow inside the criminal case. So there's the prosecutors is required to help you prepare your request and so forth. But they're very busy and they have other priorities too, and plea deals and different things that can happen. And you have to request, you have to let the prosecutor know that you want restitution early so that they can consider it in everything they do, because you can't ask the court really for restitution until you get to the point of probation or sentencing after the trial.
Right. So you're in court, all this stuff is going on, and then towards the end, when they start the sentencing, that's when you're supposed to be asking for restitution, correct?
Right, but you're allowed to give a victim impact statement after the sooner. And that will show some of your injury and loss, but everyone has to be aware, even if it's behind the scenes in your conversations with the state's attorney or their office, that you are intending to claim restitution. And either you can make a claim for restitution or the state's attorney can do it on your behalf.
Okay. So what happens if you forget?
Well,
What happens if, you're so upset, someone's been, you lost someone, you're grieving, you're planning a funeral, and you're doing all the things that kind of come with victimization, and then someone drops the ball and you're like, oh, here we are.
Let me address that. Let this be my big one, because this leads right into the huge paradox, right? It's a strange thing. Victims are entitled to justice. You're entitled to restitution. Victims want justice, but they don't want to spend more years of their lives trying to get it out of the defendant. They don't want, for instance, if someone was broken in your home, you may be traumatized, you felt violated, someone took advantage of you, and sometimes the last thing you want, especially in a case of a homicide, the last thing you want is to talk about money. But you're entitled to it, and you do want it, but you want to see justice is served. And if I may just translate, into conversation about this Schilling case that we had last year. A person, their loved one was killed, and they did not request restitution before sentencing. Now they have 30 days after sentencing if your restitution was not considered or it was improperly denied, but they didn't do that either. And it's understandable, as I was saying, that people will grieve and you're not thinking about money. So years went by with no request for restitution. I think the victim may have felt that they were getting justice because the person was serving time, but then they got a hearing. They were going to be released with time served. And they said, well, that's not fair. Well, at least now I want my funeral expenses because they're being resentenced to a shorter period. But the court denied it. They said, and so the point is that if you don't request at the original sentencing, there's a risk that you may never get restitution. And in that case, it was an unpublished decision. So we can refight that with another litigant another time. We can try to get restitution at resentencing because we weren't allowed to appeal that one. So it doesn't have precedential value.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to help. And there are so many special circumstances that come up in law that we may be able to help you even at that point years later. So if you've ever been hurt, even if your judgment may have expired or you didn't request, it's good to talk to an attorney. Come to us because there may be a way that we can assert some rights afterward, but it'd be very difficult.
Yeah. So that case was, I think, trying to remember the years just because I do know the son, actually just emailed him earlier today. She was murdered in like 1970s, like the late 70s. And the defendant was in jail. And so, clearly, we weren't even in existence at that time. And here we are, right? So the restitution was never requested then. And the decision, I guess, Troy, is what you're saying. The decision was that it needs to be asked within 30 days of the original sentencing.
That's right.
but this guy was supposed to serve like life plus, whatever amount the amount it was. So there was no actual thought that restitution would ever be received because they think that he was just going to be in jail like forever, indefinitely. And so it was never asked because I think that what people ask for restitution, and what is the likelihood of it actually being paid if they're in jail?
Right.
Like, is that a thing?
It is
They get like
often
$1.
unlikely because the person can't work in a regular job while they're in prison, so they don't have resources to pay you. And well, this is a thing that more time, more effort, more worry, more trauma, and revisiting this issue with the offender trying to get restitution is painful. And this is one thing I would hope that maybe we can think up some things to change the law in the future. Because when someone dies, especially when someone dies, we know that someone has to be buried. That body, something has to be done. It's going to cost. And it would be helpful to have some sort of default amount that was that was ordered, so that the victim would not have nothing if they ended up requesting restitution later. It gets something, because that's a definite loss. That's not something imaginary or something you can't prove. You know that there has to be a default minimum of expense. And even in restitution, I think there's room for that without proof. A certain amount, it's going to cost to dispose of a body.
So, and we're talking about homicide here, but I think that restitution is for other crimes as well. So, someone breaks into your car, right? Someone breaks into your car and they break the window or whatever. And, you can't be driving around with that plastic bag on your window forever, right? Like, you've got to go get that fixed. So that would be something like restitution, right? Like, you could ask them to fix that. And here's my receipt from, even if you have your car insurance, like that deductible, man, I tell you, grown-up world is rough because you're like, man,
Right.
I had that really high deductible, but this stinking windshield is like, $300 and it doesn't meet your deductible of $500. So you're just out of pocket, right? So that would be something, right?
That's a good example. That's a good example. Someone could steal something from your car, and if you're not in it, CICB, I believe, will not pay for that. It's a property. Restitution will pay for it, even if you're not in the car. I think that Rebecca may know more, but I read something that CICB might cover the loss if someone is robbing your car and you're in it. But no, maybe I'm wrong.
Nothing to do with property loss or property damage at all.
So restitution is the place to come if your injury is mostly economic. Of course, there's often trauma. You feel violated, scared. They catch you at a vulnerable time. They outnumber you. They have a weapon. It's scary, and you don't want to revisit it mentally. But there is one difference in the case of theft. If they are convicted of theft, then the court has to order restitution whether you ask for it or not. And I guess it's presumed that the defendant had a hearing in the sense that he was defended by a public defender or a lawyer, and evidence was presented that something was stolen. So that's kind of a substitute for a restitution hearing. But the victim will probably be a witness and can provide evidence of the loss too. But that's the one time where you can get restitution where no one has asked for it. It's just something was proven to be stolen and it must be returned.
And Sandra, I did like your example. Just wanted to emphasize that restitution can be used for deductibles as well.
Perfect. Because, those are not fun. Yeah. Grown-up world is, you're like, but it's not my fault. Yeah. So let's go into an example of you get awarded restitution. and that person that is awarded the restitution, let's just round numbers, $5,000. You're awarded restitution of $5,000 and then you pass away. Who collects that money? Is that restitution still valid? What do you do there?
So you're saying the victim passes.
Sure, the person that has
Right.
filed for restitution. Yes.
Right. What would be their personal representative? Whoever is the estate representative would then be the person to collect on that restitution claim.
That was easy. Well, I guess that was an easy question. And let's get into, let's say you're awarded restitution and they don't pay. Now that could be for various reasons, right? Like that could be them being in jail and not having income. That could be that they're out of jail and they have income, but they just don't wanna. Like, what are we doing? What can the victim do at this point?
Sorry, I have a phone ringing in the background. But yeah, so it's very important to talk to the Department of Parole and Probation. They have a case manager usually. So restitution can be awarded as part of probation or its sentencing. During the time that they're in jail, the Department of the prisons, they basically take care of withholding restitution whenever the defendant earns money.
Oh, they do?
Yes.
Automatically?
Yes, they're required by statute. If there's a restitution order in place, that they would then withhold like 25 to 20%, depending on circumstances. But once the case is in the hands of Department of Parole and Probation, keep them informed of whether you're getting paid, and you can ask questions, and they can tell you what to expect or why the person is not paying. That is your contact, and they have a special department. Like they'll have a victim services department, the Department of Parole and Probation, who should be able to be helpful to you.
Sandra, I chatted it to you if you want to share with everyone.
Oh, yeah, let me grab that. I was actually going to type out words while I was trying to use my ears too, which is really challenging.
Yeah, the victim services team at Parole and Probation, it will be a good resource if you wanted to check on the status of payment or if you're not being receiving restitution. And they'll also, work with the probation agent on that.
Yeah,
Okay, so let me just back up. So if someone is still institutionalized, does the victim know if they are employed?
well, you can ask. We've done that.
Who do they ask?
We would ask the state's attorney, probably. But also, if you don't know who to ask, the Department of Parole and Probation can still probably direct you on the victim services. But I have called and found out things from the state's attorney's office about whether the person was working or not. And they have been helpful. But we're not, I guess during that period, it's kind of a cloak. We don't have access to, their prison account to know what's coming in and what's going out of it. So we can find out, what has been paid, and they'll tell you, well, we're withholding this. They have a payment plan. They may be able to share what that plan is, so that you can kind of predict a little what you'll be getting. And while you're in prison, I think maybe 18 months out, they start thinking about pre-release if their sentence is going to expire. And that's a time to start thinking, this is how much time I have left to get paid my restitution before they go free. And then they wouldn't be getting these automatic deductions anymore. And 90 days out, they'll check again, perhaps. the parole and probation will check, and they'll say, oh, is this person in violation of their probation, having not paid restitution? And you can get an extension of probation, I think, for up to 5 years, and maybe again, just for purposes of restitution. So it can go beyond. You can keep them supervised and reporting and paying restitution longer, even after their sentences expired. But it's not to punish them, but it's to make sure they keep paying restitution. But it's the state's attorney and it's the public officials really who are responsible for that. And they can order an earnings withholding order if the person is employed, and collect from the employer. But those things, we've had success sometimes, us trying to prompt that or to ask for that, and somehow it has happened. But it should be the public officials who are doing the criminal enforcement.
Okay. So I did drop a link that Becky shared to the victim services in the comments of our live stream, so you guys can grab that information there. Becky and Troy were saying that that is kind of your starting point. If you are to be receiving restitution and you haven't seen anything, like that is a good place to start, and they should be able to direct you to figure out, you know, what's what. And I think ideally, you know, people come out from being institutionalized and they're on the path to righteousness, and they are employed and they are getting these withholdings and, you know, all these lovely things, and sometimes not, right? Sometimes that's not the case. And when that's not the case, you're still calling this place?
Well, once they're released, and if their sentence is actually over, well, when probation ends, if they haven't paid, right, all the restitution, if they're working, the judge may make an earnings withholding order, but probation is end and they're free now. They haven't paid their restitution. The case must be turned over to Maryland Central Collection Unit. It's a special agency that will collect from that person indefinitely. They have no statute of limitations, but they're very busy. They collect all the debts of the state. So they're not going to pursue that person like a private detective. If you know where they're working, you can try to get the information to them through Department of Parole and Probation. But the Central Collection Unit can keep collecting. They'll collect from the person's tax returns. If they get a refund, they can intercept a lottery win. Mm-hmm. So
they like intercepting money. Yeah,
the government will keep fighting for your restitution, but sometimes it results in passively, because the person has no money, no job, and if they get it,
like off the radar, right? Like they're just off the radar.
Mm-hmm. They will check. The tax authorities will report, hey, this person's working, and they'll check like quarterly and try to attach those wages. But you yourself, every time, this is something important. I think I wanted to make sure I say this. I remember I said that you can get restitution without asking for it if it's theft, and that's considered, the court will order restitution. Every time a court orders restitution, at probation, sentencing, or after a theft conviction, that judgment can be indexed and recorded. If there's a special restitution hearing, that process is kind of understood, but sometimes it doesn't happen. And so if the court orders restitution at any time, ask them, or ask us to help, or ask the state's attorney to ask the court. If you're speaking before the court giving a victim impact statement, if there is an order of restitution, ask them to index and record it as a civil judgment, because then you can, if that person is working and for some reason the state's attorney or CCU didn't do anything, you can attach their wages with that judgment.
Okay. So can someone do that on their own without an attorney?
Oh, it's very easy. We're happy to help. It's like $45 or something, plus you got to serve them through certified mail, but it's just a form, and you request a writ of garnishment. Well, after it's indexed and recorded, you can request a writ of
All the
garnishment.
attorney words are coming now, you see.
Well, it's a big word, but it's a 1-page, 1 or 2-page form. And
Okay.
you just say, this is what they owe. This is the judgment of restitution that the court ordered. They haven't paid me yet, and this is how much they still owe. It's like
Okay.
the easiest thing you ever filled out. But attorneys.
Well, I don't know about that, Troy. I don't know about that, but so this is why it's always great to have someone like me that knows nothing about all the attorney stuff. So if you are owed restitution, then they can call MCVRC. Like, we would help them turn it into a civil judgment.
Of course, we can, and we're happy to intercede with the court on your behalf to get any of this done, anything done that you need.
That's great. We're great. That's great. I'm glad that we do that for them. Okay, so if you're owed restitution, you're not getting it, something's wonky, call us, and Elijah and Troy are gonna do all the things and get you put in and fill out all the writs and things and paperwork and these really super easy forms that are the easiest thing that you've ever filled out, Troy says. Yeah?
Sure. And sometimes we'll call you. Occasionally we'll call you.
You're not calling me. I'm like, I don't know. Troy said it was a really easy form. You call him over there. That's all I got. Well, I'm glad that we can help with that, because I think that it is frustrating, and I think that victimization is a tough thing, because it happens, and people are going through a lot of trauma, regardless of what it is. It could be breaking into your car. I spoke to someone about a similar thing where someone broke into her car, and she was picking up her daughter from daycare. I don't remember what it was, but picking up her daughter. But now I said, every time you go, do you look in the backseat of your car to see if someone, do you look around? Because that's trauma. That's showing that you had trauma before. If you're looking around a parking lot, or if you are taking these precautionary, steps in your movements, that's because something happened to you. And it can be someone breaking into your car or but that doesn't mean that you're any less traumatized than the next person. And I think the big thing is that we don't compare trauma. Everyone gets to have their own space for the emotions and feelings that they have. And so I'm just glad that, MCVRC is able to assist with restitution, because it might seem small, but it really isn't. It really is about righting a wrong and making sure that people are accountable for their actions. And so anywho, I'm just glad that we do that. Okay, anything that you guys want to add to these topics before we get into, oh no, there was one more question. Troy, and you had mentioned this when we were chatting, thoughts on people that are getting checks and didn't even know that they were actually getting payments.
Oh yeah, several times, at least three different times recently. Someone said, well, I reached out to one on a matter, but they thought they were not getting paid restitution. But what happened was the checks come from the government. One person was working for the government years ago, and they thought it was part of their pay, because it just says, "Hi, I'm the comptroller or treasury, and this is your check." It doesn't say this is a restitution check. And another person, they had issued checks, mailed them, but they never received them. So they had been going on thinking, I guess nobody's doing anything for me. I'm not getting paid. But we reached out to them on another matter, and they said, yeah, I haven't received a thing. And so we investigated and found out, well, the checks were never cashed. And so the DPP, they have a collection unit as well. A collection accounting unit, they said, well, you're right, they've never been cashed, so we're going to reissue them. So it's hard. Victims are trying to put this behind them. It is traumatic to think that somebody snuck into your home and took something, or broke in, or pulled a gun on you, or you don't want to revisit. And I guess we've had opportunity to look at some old cases that basically no one ever thought anything would be collected, because we found out that a group of prisoners were in a lawsuit and they were going to receive some money. And we made a lot of calls, sort of cold calls to victims. And, I guess maybe Elijah can talk about some of that. Some of these calls we've made you get different reactions from different victims. Some want the restitution, some don't anymore for various reasons. But I don't know, Elijah, do you want to speak to any of that?
Yes. I think this might be one of the areas that I can actually speak to, because Troy and Rebecca are very knowledgeable in this matter, much more so than I. But reaching out to these victims and part of this lawsuit, there were some victims that were very eager to talk to us and very eager to try to see something progress with their case. And even if it was a small amount, talked to victims that were owed $500, and they were still like, yes, I want to be a part of this. And then there were others where we reached out to a victim, and they informed us that they had found out the defendant had passed, and that while it would still be possible to get money through the defendant's estate and thing such as that, but it would make it harder, and they wanted it just put past them. They saw it as the person had passed. There wasn't really any kind of relief or benefit in their eyes that they saw to seeking out this restitution. So it is a very, like Troy said, it is a very wide range of people of, their opinions, or not opinions, but feelings on how hard they would like to pursue this restitution, especially for cases that are, in some of those cases, they were over 10 years old. Some of them had moved on and they just wanted this behind them. Some of them still wanted to fight for, their chance at justice, I guess. That's the way to say it.
Yeah, and I would say for that case, we had mixed reactions from people, but every person who actually signed up with us and had a defendant in that case received their full restitution and interest. So that would be like if they were owed $1,000, they got $2,000 or more, because their case was so old. They had forgotten about it or given up, or others. If you don't speak up and kind of pursue, and they have something called a victim notification form where you can file so that you get notified at different events in the criminal proceeding. But if you let the Department of Parole and Probation, let them keep knowing where you live, renew your judgment. If it's indexed and recorded, renew it every 12 years. Eventually, if some money comes in and it is collected by us in a lawsuit like the one Elijah was talking about, or if CCU collects it, they've got to find you. And if you're not keeping them informed of where you are, it'll just go to a general victim fund if it's ever collected. But if you want to be paid, or if or part of any action, maybe a larger action on behalf of victims, we've got to find you. And if your name is Jane Smith, there may be 1,000 of you, and we'll never know which one is owed restitution.
Actually, I can speak to something you just shared regarding if the individual or victim can't be located and there was a payment made. That money does go towards a grant fund called Legal Services for Crime Victims, managed by our office. So it does go to useful funding for legal services for crime victims if they can't find the individual who is owed. And there's this period of time. It's posted on the property website where you can log in and see if anything, you have any payments owed to you. And I think it's posted there for several years before it comes to that grant fund.
That's when it's always nice to have an interesting interesting name set up, right? You're like, oh yeah, there's no other, I was that way with my maiden name as well. It's all very interesting. So I'm like, no, there's no other ones like me, but definitely John Smith or, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything on that we missed that you guys want to add before we start going into legislation, the working group and all that?
One thing I would just want to add that I think very quickly is just that both answers are correct for victims. If they want to seek restitution, if they've been given restitution and they want to fight for it and stuff like that, that is perfectly reasonable. Also, putting it behind them after many years, while we are here to fight and we are here to help, it is perfectly understandable to victims if they would like to move on with the track. I think it goes to show kind of what Sandra said about the trauma of it and stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
I love that. Absolutely. And I was thinking that when you were talking about it, and I don't know why I didn't mention it, but I'm glad you did. Everyone's path is different and they get to pick what's right for them and, what feels the best for them. And I love that it actually goes towards a fund where it's actually being put back into good use in case they're not, moving forward. So it kind of makes it doubly, great either way. So thanks for that. Okay, so let's hop into we talked about some of the things that make restitution challenging. It's a challenging thing. It's challenging because people are institutionalized and are not working. It's challenging because, how much can someone possibly give if they're out and trying to pay rent somewhere? Lord knows what rent is these days, and cost of living, and you only get a certain percentage, and you're trying to track this money and it's kind of all over the place, and you're getting these random checks from the comptroller's office. You don't know what they are, so everything's just kind of all over, and you just need someone to help you figure out things because that's how it is. It's not I always get the random comptroller check that's like returning tags, and it'll be like $52 because it's like, when I return my tags when I get a new car. But yeah, so now we're going to talk about things that are like on the horizon. So there's currently a working group. Do you guys want to share about the working group?
Yeah, I'm happy to. The Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy is currently coordinating a statewide group focused on restitution. There's members of representatives from Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, the CCU, also the Comptroller's Office. We have attorneys from Crime Victims Resource Center, and some other state agencies represented, including the Department of Juvenile Services and the Office of the Attorney General. The purpose of the work group is to identify maybe creative ways to increase restitution collection or other avenues to support restitution being collected for survivors and victims. One advancement that is currently in progress is an electronic payment system through the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. This would be a portal where the offenders could make payments instead of having to use checks or money orders. And then victims, there would also be a victim portal where they could log in and see how much has been paid towards restitution and the balance and things like that. And so that is still in progress, but we're hoping it should go live soon. But that is something that is exciting that will be, I think, something that will bring Maryland to current times with the payment for restitution, as well as hopefully it'll increase payments, being able to have an easier way to do that. Again, this is only for the adult population. It would not impact any of the juvenile offenders that may be owed restitution, but the Department of Juvenile Services is also looking at a similar portal or payment system, but they are nowhere near the same level of progress as Public Safety and Correctional Services.
Okay. So that's something that is already a best practice in other states?
I would say yes, it's a best practice, because money orders and cashier checks are, a barrier when they have to pay to receive one of those, and then they're paying for restitution. And so it would just be an easier way to make payments, as well as track them.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I actually had an experience with trying to get a money order, because you used to be able to just go to any like Dash In or like 7-Eleven and get a money order. And my son was working at like a little gas station, like, whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, you just go in there and get a money order if you don't have your own personal checks. Because my kids, they're young and they don't own checks. And my daughter used to pay rent like that. And I'm like, yeah, you could just go in there, it's like $1. And they're like, no, we don't do that anymore. I'm like, you guys don't do money orders anymore. So evidently, me showing my age is fantastic. So
Yeah, and it's so that just shows it's at certain places it's not as accessible as it used to be even as well. So, they
Yeah.
have to go to certain areas or locations to do that.
Yeah.
The working group, we also are, discussing other avenues, best practices in other states. Crime Victims Resource Center, I know Troy might want to talk about a little bit more. There's some legislative ideas that we've been bouncing around for a while. But that's the main thing I wanted to share regarding any updates.
Nice. Troy, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, yeah, it's been a real privilege to work with Rebecca on the restitution work group, to be able to share ideas and hear how the different agencies and government entities, how they're working on the issues. And some have been very helpful in providing us information that we need to help victims. And we really appreciate that. And I guess we're hopeful that some ideas that the group has proposed will come into reality, maybe in the next legislative session. Maybe they'll take a close look at them, because back to that paradox, victims, they deserve justice, but every minute and out of their day, every memory that resurfaces is them paying the price of crime again. And the more it can be automated, some of the legislative proposals have to do with more automatic things happening, so the victim would not have to revisit these things as often, that it would be requested for them, that maybe not have to be renewed. Maybe that there would be a central point that Rebecca was talking about, the system she was talking about to keep track of the accounts, and it could be easily accessed by the victim. Different things that make it where you don't have to fight to get the attention of the court and so forth. The more it's automated, the less the victim has to do. I think the more just the system is, and the more restitution will be collected, because a lot of these folks, there's emotional and there's other reasons that they're not more active in trying to collect restitution. But when we call them on this kind of cold calling them, hey, I see that you're owed restitution. We see this person may have some money. Do you want it? A lot of times they're very grateful. They feel that person, they start standing on their rights again, but they were not ignoring it. They thought maybe they were being ignored. So the more it's automated, I think the more we'll have satisfied victims and the more justice will be done.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I think, if they're feeling seen and it's not, as stressful, it's just another added stress to life, is trying to collect restitution. I mean, I could see why people would, turn away from just doing it, because it's just too much to handle. Like, you're working your regular job, you're doing the thing with the kids, life is hectic. And to do that and then just be, put through all the emotions and trauma again is challenging. So it sounds like, we're on the right track to making it easier, and Lord knows helping with some of that accounting on the back end to be able to kind of see things is always helpful versus you guessing, what's going on if you're getting regular payments is fantastic. Okay, so we've got about 9 minutes. Anything that we missed that you guys wanted to add? Any other policies, practices, legislation that's coming, or and I know, Becca, that you said that this working group is only for the adult offenders. Is there a separate? You said
No,
just
the work group itself is focused on both juvenile and adult restitution collection, but the system that I was mentioning that is making some progress is only for the adult offenders
to receive. Mm-hmm.
But we're looking at restitution from both avenues. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry, misunderstood that. Glad I asked.
No problem.
Yeah, well, there are some current things. I don't know if they're still current, but every once in a while there's legislation proposed by others with regard to expungement or different situations where cases are closed and or erased, and restitution may still be pending. And so we have, I guess, made it known on behalf of victims that restitution should be a consideration before a case is considered ended or a record is erased. It should at least be on the table as something that is unresolved and try to resolve it at that point. And it's okay, like Elijah was saying, if it helps, if a particular victim does not want restitution, just the communication, back and forth communication. If you want to be paid restitution, you must communicate, but also if you don't want it, the system thinks you still do, and we'll all be working on it and looking for you and trying to, but if you don't want it, you can make an affirmative, a waiver, and that will free up the attention of the courts a little bit, so that they can decide. The state's attorney may still request it on behalf of the state, and it will go to other victims. But your opinion matters about how you want that to go and whether you even want restitution.
That's great, Troy. Thank you so much. Okay, so I guess we've got a few minutes. Any last words before we close out this session? Elijah?
Nothing from me. I again want to thank Becca for joining us. We really appreciate it, and I've definitely learned a lot just from being a part of this. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm happy to be included as well, and just wanted to share that the state is looking at restitution. It is a victim's right to request restitution. We want to see those victims become whole through restitution payments. And so, please utilize the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, Parole and Probation Victim Services contact we put in the chat, or reach out to Crime Victims Resource Center or my office if we can help connect you with information about your restitution orders.
Thanks so much, Becky. Troy?
Yeah, I have nothing really to add, but a big thank you to Elijah and to Rebecca for participating. It would be terrible if I were the only one here. And I really appreciate your contributions and all the hard work that you're doing.
So thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you guys for sharing so much information. I think, for anyone that's frustrated at home, it's nice to know that they're still being thought of. Like, we're still trying to move forward and work on ways to make things right as much as we can. If you're at home and you're frustrated with restitution, please reach out to MCVRC. Elijah and Troy will be happy to help you file all those really super easy forms that Troy said were like the easiest form that you could ever do. So love that for people. They don't have to do 45 pages worth of documents. And every month, you know, we do a different lunch and learn. Next month, we're actually going to do parole hearings. So if you have questions about parole hearings, we're going to do that rundown with another one of our attorneys that I'm going to spotlight. And then 2 victims are actually going to share their journey on how parole hearings worked for them and what you can expect. If you guys have any ideas for future lunch and learns that you would like to see, please let us know. We really like sharing information. We want people to be more educated about their rights and things that are available to them, whether it be resources or just the journey to justice. So we appreciate you being here. Please share. You never know who you're going to help in a quick share, and let us know if we can help you. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.